All right. Per usual, just gonna wait on everybody to hop in. I messed up my thumbnail. Well, here we go. Nobody's in the Discord yet, but if you tune in and you wanna chat about anything related to today or the sport in general, please feel free. Link is in the chat. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and get into this today. We've been live for a couple minutes. Hope everybody's having a good Saturday so far. Hope everybody's been safe this weekend. It's been hectic, crazy. Weather was definitely wild, but again, I hope everybody is safe as we go into this weekend, and hopefully some college football can take everybody's mind off of really everything. There's some great storylines going into this weekend, of course. Army and Navy, funny enough, can do something they haven't done since 1945, which is both teams being undefeated, 4-0 specifically, um, both in the same season for the first time since 1945. It's never happened. Army took care of their part. They won on Thursday night playing Temple. They beat them pretty badly. It was 42-14. Navy plays UAB today. They win, and they'll be 4-0, and it will complete a very, very cool storyline that, again, we haven't seen since 1945. Thought that was really cool going in. I'm going to wait to talk about this Virginia Tech Miami game because the ending was extremely controversial. I'd like to have more people in here to maybe talk about that. So we'll hold off on that one. And then we get Washington on the road in Piscataway against Rutgers last night, kind of getting their welcome to well, what their travel is going to look like in the Big Ten. And Rutgers relatively in charge the entirety of that game. Washington played a very good competitive football game, but Rutgers just better as they went down the stretch. Kyle Monangai had a really good game. 25 carries for 132 yards and a touchdown. Ethan Kaliamanis was really solid as well at quarterback there. This Rutgers team is definitely scary. I don't know who the bigger like underdog is going to do better, whether it comes down to Rutgers or Indiana. I'm gonna say Indiana's probably in a better spot, but their schedule plays out so well. They're favored in every game they play the rest of the way through, except for Ohio State and Michigan. That's the expectation, anyways, that they will be favored the rest of the way through. And they do have a pretty big game against Rutgers at home, or sorry, not Rutgers, against Nebraska at home here in the coming weeks. That will be a very close game and a really good test to see where they truly are. Next week for Rutgers, they go on the road to Nebraska, speaking of which, and that's a team that Nebraska coming off of a loss to Illinois. They're trying to bounce back as well. So we'll go through by conference as I normally do here. Just make sure I don't miss anything that we got going on. Start with the ACC. Today at noon, Western Kentucky goes on the road to Chestnut Hill to face Boston College. Boston College will not have Thomas Castellanos today. He is out with an injury. Expect the number to come down from that 7.5. I think Western Kentucky will hang around, but ultimately this Boston College team is extremely physical. They're really good on defense. I think they're going to give Western Kentucky enough problems as it is. I'm still taking Boston College to win. I'm still taking them to cover this game. But it is an interesting storyline to see how they react without Castellanos starting at quarterback. Another noon kickoff, this one on the CW. Northern Illinois and NC State play. NC State also a 7.5-point favorite over the Huskies. But remember, Northern Illinois did beat Notre Dame earlier this season. And they also were coming off of a loss to Buffalo. They have potential here. I'm still taking NC State. I think they're going to kind of want to bounce back, especially after their loss to Clemson. So I'm taking NC State to win. But I wouldn't be surprised if this one stays a lot closer than people expect. Holy Cross and Syracuse at noon on ESPN Plus. I'm not going to do too much. Syracuse is going to win. They're going to move forward. Kind of a nice little break after their loss last week. Louisville and Notre Dame. I previewed that game earlier this week. I'm going to wait until we get some more viewers in here before I talk about this game any further. But a really big game with a lot of playoff implications for both sides. Louisiana on the road in Winston-Salem, taking on Wake Forest at 3:30. I expect Wake to win this game, but I think it's going to be close. I think Louisiana's going to give them some problems. Coach DeSormo's been really solid so far in his time there. I mean, they haven't been quite what they were under Billy Napier. Come back down to earth a little bit. But I would not be surprised if they keep this thing close. Maybe an upset looming, but for right now, I'm just going to say they keep it close. Duke and UNC, Tobacco Road rivalry renewed on the football field. And, we saw a lot of points last week. We saw North Carolina lose 70-50 last week. I think that their offense is capable of continuing to put up points in this game. But the Duke defense has been really good, and Manny Diaz has not let them take too many steps back, especially losing both Mike Elko and Tyler Santucci. Of course, that last year, Elko, the head coach, Santucci, the defensive coordinator, now at Georgia Tech. I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Duke's looking to go 5-0, and at home, no less. O'Mara Hampton could be a game changer in this one. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm taking Duke to win. I'm taking Duke very, very close in this one, but Blue Devils nonetheless. It's going to be an extremely fun matchup to watch over at Wallace Wade Stadium. 7 p.m. tonight, Stanford on the road against Clemson. They're going to get a true welcome to the ACC. I mean, they played a really good game last Friday night in the Carrier Dome. I don't think that's going to be the case here. They're going on the road to Clemson. This is where you kind of get your welcome. Clemson's offense has been unbelievable the last handful of weeks. And I don't know did they take that step back? I'm going to take Clemson to win. I think Clemson honestly covers that 21.5, but definitely taking the Tigers in this game. It is going to be a little bit too much for the Stanford team to overcome. And at 8 p.m., the game that everybody's been talking about, and really for good reason, I suppose. Florida State on the road in Dallas, welcoming SMU to the conference. And, this was supposed to be a game that Florida State walking into possibly undefeated, having a really good start to the year. Instead, they're walking in at 1-3. They're 1 win over Cal. And SMU's walking in at 3-1, riding high, even though, they've had their own question marks and concerns so far this season. The upset's not out of the question. I think this Florida State defense is really good. I think they're going to be able to stick around in this game and keep this thing close. SMU's a 6-point favorite. I don't buy that at all. I think Florida State keeps this thing within 6. I think this is a one-score game down to the end. The biggest question is, whose offense do you trust more right now? I know SMU put up 66 last week on TCU. TCU's really struggled this year. They have not been very good, especially on the defensive side. I think if I'm going to worry about anything here, it's going to be whether or not SMU can actually consistently move the football. Last time they played a really solid defense was when they played BYU. BYU would end up winning that game due to the fact that SMU was flipping between quarterbacks, couldn't get anything consistent going, and truthfully, neither one of the quarterbacks in that game looked good. I think we're going to see a similar game this week to what we saw last week in Tallahassee, where Florida State stayed really close with Cal and just kind of suffocated the Cal offense to the point where eventually they just pulled away and were able to win late. They didn't even pull away. They won by by 1 score, but I think that's going to happen again this week. I think Florida State's going to win. I'm looking like 17-9 probably in this game. I don't think we're going to see a lot of offense down there in Dallas tonight. That's my run through of the ACC. Again, I'm going to talk about Louisville and Notre Dame a little bit later down the line. Taking a look here, I think we got our good buddy Cam in here. Cam, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Yeah, I can hear you. I'm doing good today. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm glad you got in here. I didn't hear you, so
yeah,
definitely interesting.
I hopped in literally just like maybe 2-3 minutes ago. Just kind of didn't want to interrupt what you were saying.
It's all good. I appreciate it. Welcome in again.
Mm-hmm.
Any lasting thoughts on any of those games? Again, we'll get to that Louisville Notre Dame game a little bit closer towards the end here today.
Really, the only game I heard about was the SMU Florida State game, and
okay.
I think I'm not sure, honestly. Like, I don't really trust either team. I don't love SMU's coaching staff, and so I think that's going to be kind of the biggest difference. Is Norvell's at least able to call a game better than Rhett Lashley has the past few weeks, and so I think that's gonna be the biggest difference.
Yeah, I'm 100% concerned, to say the least, about my pick in this game because I don't really know who to trust or who to think's gonna do well. I'm just gonna hope I'm right. We will see how that turns out over there in Dallas. We talked a little bit about last night's game, or I talked a little bit about last night's game. Kind of was saving it a little bit. Miami and Virginia Tech coming down to the wire, where Virginia Tech really was in control of the majority of that first half. It was a 24-17 game at the half. You turn around and they're up 10 for a good portion of the third quarter, and then Miami gets back into it late in the game. Miami driving down the field. First off, the game was saved by Xavier Restrepo making that catch from his back on 4th and 4, I think it was, 4th and somewhere between 3 and 5. And they continued to move down the field. And then it was almost saved again where Cam Ward, instead of taking the sack, kind of shovels the ball across to his tight end, gets the ball down inside the 5. They would go on a score. Virginia Tech gets the ball back, moves it down the field. And you know, last play of the game, Hail Mary, calling the field a touchdown. They then review said Hail Mary that was called a touchdown. And in my opinion, I mean, I haven't watched it back. I find it hard to believe that there was any true evidence to change that call, whether you call it incomplete at the beginning or a touchdown. I find it really hard to believe there was any evidence to truly overturn that call. However, the refs found it somewhere. I don't know where, but they found it. So how that call gets overturned, in my opinion, it's extremely baffling. I'm not particularly upset about it in any way. I think that this was a heck of a football game, that it came down to a late judgment call. And, you know, the only thing I find wrong in any way is that they overturned the call. I don't really know how they were able to do that, but to be fair, that part is what it is. I'm curious as to what you may think about that.
Yeah, I was team no catch. I did not think it was a catch. However, at the same time, I did not see anything inconclusive in that replay. And then also at one point, they popped up the little ACC command center, and literally all they had was these same angles that we had. And so how the hell can you say that was able to be overturned? Like, as much as I did not believe that was a catch, that also, like, I couldn't see anything conclusive to overturn whatever the fuck they called on the field. So, I mean, I'm right there with you. Virginia Tech got robbed.
Definitely. Well, we'll go to your neck of the woods, sort of. Well, here in a second, I'm gonna watch this. I want to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure you're gonna wait for the kicker. Let's see if 65 grand goes out today. Damn, he got close.
Just short. They're gonna give him another try, I guess. Anyways, so we moved to the American real quick while we're waiting on that. The Navy on the road against UAB. This is a noon kickoff, and truth be told, it's probably not going to be on my TV, but I am going to be watching because history's on the line. A little bit of history. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Navy and Army have not been 5-0 or 4-0 at the same time since 1945. That could all change today with a Navy win.
God damn. Since the dinosaurs roamed the earth there. But that would definitely be cool to see. You know, I've always been a supporter of the service academies. Like, just
missed. Anyways.
Yeah.
So,
like,
back to this. It hasn't happened in a long time, and here we are sitting back in a year where we didn't really know what to expect from either of these schools because they've not necessarily been able to garner any success over the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. We've kind of seen everybody just sit right down a road of mediocrity, really, between these two specifically, just right on that fringe bowl contention, nothing more, nothing less. And here we see this year, and perhaps maybe it's the transfer portal rearing back towards the service academies, because again, they don't utilize the transfer portal whatsoever. They utilize what they're bringing in and how they're developing, and I would say even more so, they rely on experience, which both of these teams have a lot of this year, which is something that we haven't been able to say about either of them for a while. A lot of the better players that do not want to stick around don't. I mean, you could think of like Mikael Haywood, for example, who's at App State right now. Both these teams have been able to rely on consistency, which is players sticking around. And I think we're finally seeing that with guys like Blake Horvath. You know, you talk about Heidenreich, Alex Teska for Navy, but you can also talk about Bryson Daly for Army at quarterback. There's a lot of guys who have been around, and finally they're kind of seeing, they're reaping the rewards of all the experience that they have, which is what makes some of these Navy teams so good, especially when they don't have that one player that sticks out. Navy does. Navy has a handful of players that stick out, and it starts with Blake Horvath, the quarterback. But I mentioned Heidenreich. I mentioned Teska. You know, you can go on the defensive side, and if I'm not fully mistaken, which, you know, I've been known to make a mistake or two once in a while, so I'm going to double check. But, I mean, they're led by Colin Ramos, who's been there for a year. I mean, he's been there for at least 4 years. I'd say 5 years as a starter or a key player on that defense. He's been around for a while. And BT Williams has been around for a while. You know, this is not a young team that Navy's put together, and to be honest, it's only going to get better. This is gonna be extremely interesting to watch as they go forward down the stretch here. Joe, I appreciate you asking. You can join the Discord server right here. The link is posted in the chat. Everybody is welcome to hop in and check that out. But yeah, this Navy team, riding on a lot of experience, I think they're going to be extremely good. I think they're going to be, I don't think a player, I think that's way too far-fetched to say about a service academy team at this point in the college football world. But they play UAB today. Next week, next Saturday, you're going to watch me don the Navy jersey for the first time because they play Air Force. I wear it every time Navy and the service academy schools play. So you got that next Saturday. And then they play Charlotte. They win those three, and they are 6-0 when they play Notre Dame on October 26th. You don't see the backstage area? Okay, so you just jump in to the general chat, and I can pull you up here, and we can talk there, Joe.
Yeah, we kind of have to keep it hidden so that way.
Yeah. Don't let everybody just jumping in and you know, throwing out obscenities. But yeah, you jump in the general chat and I'll pull you up here and we can talk. But yeah, Navy's looking at possibly being 6-0 when they play Notre Dame. That's a very fun possibility. You know, and then they follow that up and they play at Rice, at South Florida, Tulane, East Carolina Army. And to be honest, nobody's looking far and above in the ACC to the point where maybe Navy does compete in this conference and for a conference title opportunity, which would be interesting because then they would also play, you know, and they won't even play Army for a conference game. That's just how that's lined up. It will never be a conference game. But it's extremely interesting, the potential storylines that you see going forward here within the season for the midshipmen. I think it's got some serious potential. Now, that does not mean it happens by any means. That does not mean it happens. But it's a hell of a thing to think about, that's for sure. So to get off of the hype train for Navy for a second, we go on to some more noon games. South Florida at Tulane. This is going to be a really fun game because it means a lot for the conference. Both these teams have yet to lose in conference play. Actually, this is their conference opener, so they definitely have yet to lose
by default.
But you look at both these teams, and they're both really solid football teams. They both played extremely well so far this season. They've been in some competitive games with some really good teams. South Florida hung around with Alabama. They tried to stick around with Miami, but they really didn't. I think they were just kind of outplayed in that game. You look at Tulane, they hung around with Oklahoma. They hung around. They were in the game with Kansas State until the very end. So the South Florida-Tulane game has really a lot of meaning behind it for a potential rematch later down the road, but especially to get their conference season started off on the right foot. This is a big time matchup in the American.
Mhm. Yeah, no, this is a big time matchup, and it honestly should be a hell of a game. Tulane has kind of surprised me so far. They've looked pretty good through the first few games. I thought we'd see a little bit of a dip off here.
Mhm.
Just losing a stable head coach like Willie Fritz that they've had the past few years is always big for a team like a Tulane, but they've been pretty solid so far this year. And then USF has been a lot of people's favorites for group of five representation within the playoffs. Like USF has been a really good team. Any team that can hang with Bama for as much as they did of that game is a damn good team. So it's definitely a fun matchup to watch here at the group of five level. Curious to see how it plays out. Right now, I'm leaning towards USF getting the dub, and kind of continuing to control the American. What about you, Isley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely, I'm cautious about it because obviously I don't. We also have Memphis in this conference who's been extremely good this year too. So hard to say if anybody just jumps out and takes control of the conference, but certainly um, there are opportunities for one of these two teams to kind of put themselves in that position to maybe be another favorite to get there and get to the championship game. So it'll be extremely interesting again, like I said before. I'm excited to see what happens, of course, throughout the season because I think this is a fun conference to watch at the top and a fun conference to see how that race plays out because this could be the conference that gets in. I mean, we've talked about the Mountain West and UNLV. We've talked about Texas State, at least I have. The Americans kind of gotten lost in that conversation a little bit, and I think that there are multiple teams here who could make a bit of a stand here in the playoffs, and specifically South Florida, Tulane, and Memphis. So it'll be extremely fun. I'm taking Tulane. They're at home. I just think they're the better team so far this season. I think they've played a lot better against the opponents that they've been faced with to this point. But we'll see. And I see Omar in the chat. How's it going, man? Taking Tulane as well. So we'll roll on from the American. There's not too many more big games to talk about there. Let's get into the Big 12. And it all kicks off at noon with Oklahoma State and Kansas State. It's going to be a really, really fun matchup to watch. I'm excited to watch this one. I think it's going to be interesting because Oklahoma State has really struggled defensively. And once again, another week where we talk about Ollie Gordon non-existent throughout the course of this season for the Cowboys. They have yet to really solidify any semblance of a run game whatsoever. Kansas State has played very well throughout the course of their season. I know they lost last week. I know they got blown out on the road. But that game really wasn't quite as big of a blowout as people made it out to be. Kansas State hung around and was able to move the ball, especially on the ground. The biggest thing was 2 turnovers from Avery Johnson, 2 interceptions. You clean that up a little bit this week, and I think they can. Along the fact that Oklahoma State's run defense has been pretty rough as well. I mean, we watched that Arkansas game. We saw how good Arkansas was able to move the ball against them. And again, we talk about how long can Oklahoma State rely on just Alan Bowman. And I think this is that week where we start to sit back and go, oh, okay, this is actually going to be a problem. Both these teams are 0-1. This you could consider maybe an elimination game for the Big 12 championship. It means a lot. I'm taking the home team. I'm taking Kansas State to win, as I did yesterday.
Yeah, no, I am right there with you. I have Kansas State winning. Like they've been very reliant upon Alan Bowman to win you games, and doing that consistently within a conference as competitive as the Big 12, where there's so much parity every single weekend. It's a recipe for disaster. Quite frankly, I do think it's going to come down to the wire, though. Um, Still a great coaching staff there in Oklahoma State. Um, Defense has played all right at times. At the same time, they are statistically the worst defense in college football, is what I've heard them described as, so that'll be very intriguing to see if they can take a further step forward. But yeah, no, like Kansas State, I lean towards them to get the dub. They've got a consistent offense, at least, like really outside of last week, has looked really good so far this year. So give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, definitely. I'm taking a look at some stats here as we go through, and I'm going to look at defenses specifically here. I'm just going to kind of piggyback off what you said by utilizing the numbers. And when you talk about this, these are defenses, and we're going to go by total yards allowed. They are bottom 10 in defenses. They are the worst. They are the second worst Power 5 defense. They are just barely ahead of Wake Forest, who allows 472 a game. Oklahoma State's allowing 461 a game. And sorry, Cam, but Utah State is just directly above Oklahoma State in that category.
I am very well aware that Temple game did not help us.
But you look at the rushing yards allowed, and they sit back here. They're number 31, and they're bottom 34. They're below 100th in rushing yards allowed. Let's talk about yards per carry. Let's see where they're at in yards per carry. They are just outside of the top 90 in yards per carry, allowing 4.5 yards per carry. What about passing yards per game? What are they allowing in passing yards? Oh, that's right. They're bottom 15, allowing 281 per game through the air. This Oklahoma State defense has been pitiful, honestly. I mean, this is far from what we expect from a Mike Gundy team. I know that Jim Knowles leaving was a big deal, but they didn't really look this bad last year. They look awful here in 2024.
Last year, they looked solid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a huge change. And when they bring back guys like Colin Oliver, you expect this team to be that much better. You expect this team to just continue what they've been doing for the last 15 years defensively. And instead, I shouldn't say last 15, last 6 or 7 years, they were kind of the first team to really transition to that defense-first approach when the Big 12 started airing it out the way they did. And here we are talking about Oklahoma State being one of the worst defenses in college football and arguably the worst Power 5 defense in college football. I will say second worst. I think Wake Forest is above that. But it's just, it's embarrassing, honestly, to see what this has kind of turned into for Oklahoma State. They get a big-time opportunity to go on the road and maybe prove us wrong. I'm just having a hard time seeing it. I think this run game between Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards, one of the best in college football at Kansas State. And I think if they can finally figure out how to pass the football and do it consistently, I talked about Michigan, earlier this week, needing that 150 range. If you can get 150 passing yards per game out of Alex Orji, I think they go back to 10-2, probably, maybe 9-3, because they may lose to Oregon and Ohio State. They may lose to Indiana and Ohio State. Who knows? But they go to that. I think it makes this team look a lot better and look a little bit more desirable. Kansas State, I think you could say the same thing. Get between 150 and 175, and we're in a good spot. So I don't know. I think it could be interesting for certain, but I think they're going to come out of here 4-1 today here in Manhattan. And to just respond to the chat, Joe, no worries, man. Feel free to just chat along, and we'll try to get you set up for next week. You can reach out to me through the Discord or however you feel necessary, and we can get you set up that way you can come in and chat next week during the live show. Didn't see a general chat. Let me see if I can fix it.
I'm not showing him as having.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody having joined either. Let's we'll get you set up on the back end, man. I apologize that we're having that difficulty at the moment. Have to figure out exactly why it's doing. Let me see if there is.
There's another link to try to see if you can join. But
Trying to see if I can fix the see if there's like a restriction on it or something that I'm missing. Yeah, I don't have any. Make sure I don't have any server settings set up that could be an issue here. Hmm.
I do think that we do have it privated that way to where you can't really search for it. Like you have to be invited by someone else. I'm pretty sure. I'm going through the settings right now to
Yeah, so
double
was I.
check.
I was just checking through them. I think, um,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it, man. We'll get you set up. Don't you worry about that. Like I said, for next week for certain. That way we can have you in here because I definitely want everybody to be able to join in and talk and give their thoughts on what we got going on today. But again, I appreciate you here. I appreciate you chatting along, and hope you are at least enjoying what we put together so far. We'll move on. We'll go to the other game at noon in the Big 12. And that's BYU on the road in Baylor, Waco, Texas, hosting a heck of a matchup where Baylor is favored by 3 points as we go in, and they've been favored all week. It's not like the lines moved any. Baylor walked into this game favored, and they stay there. Yet we've seen BYU be extremely, extremely competitive in every game they've played. They've obviously won every game they played, and they're coming off of a huge win over Kansas State. So are they looking for that letdown factor? Are they expecting Baylor to be have like some extra motivation in this game? Where is this line coming from is the question that I have. I'm not fully sure. I'm taking BYU to win as it stands. But it's been very interesting to see what exactly like has made Baylor the favorite in this one. I mean, it's almost baffling to me how that's come about.
Yeah, no, I've noticed kind of, especially since I've gotten a little in more into sports betting. Like I've noticed that BYU tends to not really get a ton of love from Vegas, probably mainly just because most Mormons don't really do sports betting, and so there's not really any sway that way. And so a lot of the times in games like this, where it's like on paper, you're looking at a team like a BYU, who quite frankly is considerably better than a team like Baylor. As much as I hate to admit it, they're they might be an underdog against a team like that. So
Right.
we'll be curious to see what happens. But I too have Provo Tech winning.
Tech winning. All right. Well, ain't that something special? Cam has picked BYU. My goodness.
You know, I do my best to separate my biases.
You working on that?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I'll carry on rolling through games.
Yeah, I won't distract you from your show.
TCU on the road against Kansas, and this is a game that brings a lot of intrigue. Of course, Kansas is 1-3 walking into this thing, which I don't think anybody really expected. TCU has been troublesome, to say the least. They just gave up 66 to SMU, but let's not forget they also blew a 21-point lead. A 21-point lead against UCF a couple weeks back in Fort Worth. They're going on the road this week. They're playing this game, of course, at Arrowhead Stadium. And, Kansas is only a 2-point favorite. I don't know if they're just overlooking this record. I don't know if it's because Jalen Daniels has not looked extremely good to this point this season. Devin Neal's been just fine. I'm expecting a bit of a turnaround here from Kansas. I'm expecting it to start right here for the Kansas Jayhawks. And in a game where, again, TCU's defense has looked really bad. They've moved the ball, but Josh Hoover's had his moments where he struggled. They really haven't been able to get a run game going. For me, I'm taking Kansas in this game. I think that this game is going to be exciting to watch, for one. But I think it's also going to be extremely interesting to see how the Kansas fans are able to fill up Arrowhead Stadium. Are they able to make this a hostile environment or not? And, those are some questions that I have to be asked. And then again, can TCU's defense maybe step up to the plate? Because if they can, I think they can win this game. But that's the one thing turning me away. I got an eyelash in my eye. That is great timing. Love it. Anyways, moving on.
You hate to see it.
You really do. 3:30 game on Fox, UCF and Colorado. This game being played at FBC Mortgage Stadium down there in Orlando. Really excited for this game, to be completely honest, because I think there's a lot of potential for this game. UCF's defense has not really been overly impressive so far this season. Their offense has been good. Their run game has been fantastic. But their defense has been troublesome. And when you have an offense that you're facing that looks like Colorado does right now, you got guys like Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., and then you've got running backs who can make plays. I mean, there's Dallin Hayden. This is an impressive game, and it's almost more impressive that Vegas is giving UCF at 1 point 15.5, which is what I got Colorado at, is plus 15.5. But now it's down to 13.5. And I think that this Colorado team is going to stick around in this game. This is going to turn into another shootout. I'm taking UCF to win because I do think they are the better team. I think eventually they're going to be able to make a play and make a stop. I also see their physicality posing a bit of a problem for this Colorado team. It's going to be extremely fun to watch. I can't wait to see how this turns out. But this is a game that I think has a very solid potential here to see maybe Colorado improve to 4-1 and 2-0 in conference.
All right.
Think you got it?
So he should at least have an invite out there. Hopefully you're able to get it, Joe.
All right. Solid work from the boys here. Moving on to the 7 p.m. games. Iowa State on the road against Houston. To be honest, this line's jumped a lot. I got this game when Iowa State was a 13.5 point favorite. That line has jumped all the way to 16. I got it at a really good time. I bought early. We ain't selling. We're taking Iowa State. We're taking Iowa State to cover, even at 16. This Houston team is bad. Arguably, could be one of the worst teams in Power 5 right now. And it's not an issue with Willie Fritz. It's more so an issue with just this team being able to put themselves together and be able to really win football games. It's going to take some time. Give them that time. And I think we're talking about a team that can be competitive at a minimum. here in the Big 12. But it's just not happening here. I think Iowa State's that much better. Cyclone's big.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cyclone's big. Willie Fritz runs a unique, more complex offense, so that it's always an adjustment with him. Give him a year or two, Houston, you'll be all right.
Yeah. All right, Cincinnati, Texas Tech. This game in Lubbock, 8 p.m. Also, Omar saying, as a UCF alum, hope we don't get embarrassed on the national stage, especially being so heavily favored. I don't think it's going to be an embarrassment. I do think that there are going to be some question marks to be answered in this game, especially as to how far this team can really go. And I think it all rides on the defense. The offense has been good. They've been running the ball extremely well. They're one of the best in the country at doing that. Just need to see, and this is a perfect litmus test. Is our defense okay, or is this defense less than okay, or can we be a top 60 defense as we go down the stretch? Because remember, when they opened the season, they opened with New Hampshire. Everything looked great against New Hampshire, but it is ultimately New Hampshire. And then you play Sam Houston, and I don't really think too highly of Sam Houston right now as a team. So then you get TCU, and you had to come back from down 21. You gave up 34 points, and that was your toughest offense to date. Colorado is a better offense than TCU, so I think it's going to be a struggle. Embarrassed is a word that I wouldn't see. Rolling back through here. Cincinnati on the road against Texas Tech. Texas Tech's a 3-point favorite, but I'm not buying it. I got Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's extremely improved this season to a point where they are, I think, going to compete with a lot of teams and maybe be a surprise player in this conference. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I think I had them 6-6 or 7-5 preseason, and I'm going to stick to that. I think they're probably around that range. But this is a really intriguing game, a really fun matchup, and it's hard to go to Lubbock and win at night. $10:15 on ESPN. Arizona goes on the road to Utah. Cam Rising, game time decision. And so we got a long ways to wait before we get to determine whether or not Cam Rising's playing or not. Noah Fafita's been really good. Tedero McMillan's been really good. But Arizona as a whole has not really been all that great. Utah has been good. Isaac Wilson played well last week. I don't know that he can be the guy that wins a shootout type of a game for Utah, but I don't think it gets that far. I think the Arizona offense has kind of been slowed down to a good degree, especially in the games that they've played against some tougher opponents. I think we may see that again here in this game. I think we could see a very similar game play out to what we watched last week in Boone Pickens Stadium when Utah was on the road in Stillwater playing Oklahoma State. I'm taking the Utes at home night game. Rice Eccles Stadium environment's crazy in that kind of a game. No reason to believe otherwise here. Utes.
Yeah, no, I am 1,000% right there with you. Arizona, quite frankly, has looked bad this first year under Brett Brennan. Defensively, especially, they've looked absolutely atrocious. And so, I don't expect it to get to be it's going to be a lot like the Oklahoma State game for Utah, where it's you look at the score, it's not going to be a blowout. However, once you deeper dive into the stats, you're like, oh, Oklahoma State never had a chance in this game. So yeah, no, give me Utah to win pretty comfortably. Yeah, no, but either way,
Apologies, I had to step away.
no, you're good.
Um. Anyways, I was trying to get food ordered.
No, you're good. That's an important thing for every
Well, yeah,
college football Saturday.
yeah, as it is. I mean, you gotta be diligent. All right, there we go. Hmm. Anyways, put it on my inbox. Okay, we're doing a live Discord teaching session as we are. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Joe. We do appreciate your tuning in as we're gonna continue to roll through these. I'm gonna try to rapid fire these a little bit here as we go. And roll through here. So
especially a lot of the not so great games.
right. So we got the matchup: Little Brown Jug, Michigan, 10.5-point favorites. I'm taking Michigan and the cover. At home, Iowa basically did the same thing Michigan's going to do today. I think the only thing that's going to change is the fact that Michigan's going to get ahead, and they're going to try to throw the ball, try to extend that passing game a little bit, and maybe test some things out that you can see going forward. That's the only thing I really see happening in this game. Otherwise, again, I'm taking Michigan big. In Maryland on the road against Indiana in Bloomington. Indiana's been one of the best graded offenses all season to this point, as they've played. Nobody exceptionally tough, but when you look at them, like just based on the eye test, their offense has been extremely good. That Curtis Rourke has been almost a godsend to this team, and to be honest, I don't think it would have changed much whether they would have kept Brennan Sorsby, who is now at Cincinnati and looks really good in Satterfield's offense. But you get Curtis Rourke from Ohio, and he's come in and been fantastic, to say the least, with this team. They're averaging the most points they've ever averaged through this point in the season in school history. I mean, they put up the most points they've ever put up in school history in week 1 when they hung 77. Indiana, at home, no reason to feel upset here. Hoosiers win, and I got them covering. I got them at 6.5 earlier this week. I have that in my take 10. I think it's going to be an easy win here. 12 p.m. Game on Peacock. We got Nebraska on the road against Purdue. Nebraska a 10-point favorite. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that Purdue might hang around a little bit in this game. Nebraska coming off of a tough loss. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a disappointing win for Nebraska. I don't think they're going to be content with the way they go through this thing, but I'm taking them to win nonetheless. And then you go out to LA at 3:30, CBS, USC hosting Wisconsin. USC coming off of what was, you could argue, a heartbreaking loss last week. And I think they're going to bounce back. They're 14.5-point favorites against Wisconsin. I'm taking them to win. I'm also taking the under in this game. It was at 50.5 when I got it. It stays there. USC going to win at home. 7:30 p.m. Peacock. What a disgusting day for Peacock. Ohio State and Michigan State. This game in East Lansing, Ohio State 23.5-point favorites. Remember, I took Ohio State team total over 35.5. I think it's going to be that kind of a game. Give me the Buckeyes winning big. The night game on NBC, Illinois at Penn State. I'm taking Penn State to win at home. This number has gone up to 19.5. I don't know that they cover almost 20 points. But what I do know is that Penn State has been really good so far this year. Their defense has played well. And Andy Kotelnicki has really kind of saved this team a little bit. I think this team is kind of bordering on that legit playoff and maybe even cultural championship contender route right now, just the way they've played to this point. Need to see it as they go down the stretch, and they need to do a lot more as they go. But Penn State's not a team that I think many schools want to see to this point. 11 p.m. on Fox, some Big Ten after dark. Oregon at UCLA. I'm taking Oregon big. UCLA is definitely not looking too great. We'll move on. Let's go through SEC real quick for time purposes, I'm gonna be trying to get everybody out of here in the next 10 minutes. At noon, Kentucky at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 16-point favorite. I got Ole Miss at 15.5. I think it was 15.5. Let's see. Let's pull that graphic up real quick. 17.5. So actually, it's dropped, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. I think Ole Miss wins and wins big. Their offense has been, I'm going to say, the best in the country. They've definitely moved the ball at a rate that it's hard to do at any level against any level, and they've been so consistent in doing so. I'm not too worried about them. I think their defense is much improved this year too. So I'm taking Ole Miss to win and cover Kentucky. Oklahoma and Auburn. I'm picking Oklahoma to win because I think their defense is going to play better than Auburn's defense. But I am 100% on the under in this game, and you saw it on that graphic. It was 45.5. It's dropped a point to 44.5, but still on the under. Arkansas and Texas A&M playing in Arlington. I'm taking Arkansas to win. I think that they are going to be the better team as we go through this game. And to be honest, I just don't know what to expect from A&M today. I really don't. I'm having a hard time. It seems like A&M always struggles in this one to begin with, so it just kind of feels like it's that time to take Arkansas once again. Mississippi State and Texas. I'm taking Texas. Big Blake Shapen being out for the season really hurts Mississippi State in general going forward. So we will see what happens for them. Save this game. South Alabama and LSU. This is a game that I have on upset warning. South Alabama is going to hang around in this game, and I think they're going to make this an uncomfortably close game against LSU. They do everything that South Carolina could do, arguably a little more efficiently than South Carolina does it, especially passing the football. Gio Lopez is fantastic. We saw what they were able to do to App State, which I think doesn't say as much as we would like it to say. I'm taking South Alabama to cover. Do not be surprised if they pull the upset in Baton Rouge today. And then the night game, the game that everybody's talking about today, the game of the year on paper, Alabama, Georgia, in Tuscaloosa. I talked about it Thursday. I think this game's going to live up to the hype, but I think the offense of Georgia has a lot of questions that they need to answer. I think they went out and they beat Clemson, and they did a great job doing it. They did a great job just blowing Clemson out. But I think Clemson hadn't quite figured out their own identity to a point where we would see what we needed to see from them, what we've seen the last 2 weeks from them. Does not take away an impressive win. But what we saw last week in Lexington against the defensive line that Kentucky puts out there, Georgia really couldn't run the ball. Trevor Etienne was their best runner, and he was averaging 4 a carry, but everybody else struggled. And if they're going to do it that way again this week, I think it's going to look the same this week. I'm taking Alabama to win. I have the score at 24-13. I think Alabama is just going to be the better team. I think their offense is going to create a few more problems here. I mean, you got guys like Ryan Williams who have broke out onto the scene, Jam Miller, but also Justice Haynes. Both those guys have been good. Jalen Milroe has been good. I got Alabama in this game. Any thoughts, Cam?
Yeah, I have Alabama winning as well. I think that this has potential to be a great game. Georgia's defense is going to keep them in the game until the wee hours of the game. But I have Alabama. I've seen more out of Alabama's offense than I feel I have Georgia's the last time they played against Kentucky. That offensive line left a lot to be desired, and against a front seven like in Alabama's, you're going to get a lot of pressure and a lot of hurried throws into a really good secondary. So it'll be interesting to see, but I mean, you never know.
That is true. You never know. We got a hell of a slate of college football today, and I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it again tomorrow when I go live for the Sunday, the weekly recap that we do that we missed for 2 weeks because of obvious reasons. So I'm excited to come back, Cam. I appreciate you tuning in. Any other final thoughts before we hop out of here for the day and enjoy some college football?
Yeah, on paper, this kind of looks like a little bit of a sleepy slate, and we all know what happens when it's a sleepy slate. So it should be another really fun week of college football. Should see a few upsets, and overall a great weekend of college football.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't say it better myself. I'm super excited to see what we get here this weekend. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate all the chats. This was definitely a successful show, the most we've had consistently throughout the entirety of the hour that we do this on Saturday mornings. Cam, thank you. As always, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be on.
Enjoy your Saturday of college football, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. We'll go live once again. And Joe, we will get you set up for next Saturday 100%. Reach out to me throughout the week and we'll get you put together. Same thing for Cam. We'll get you all set up. That way you can find your way into these. As for everybody, you can all find your way into these. I will post one more time, getting the link out there to the Discord in the live chat, so everybody can see that and partake. But again, I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, y'all have a fun and safe college football Saturday.